Mm, mm. We are live. Thank you, creatives, community, kind folks out there. Hello. Uh, just to let you know, for those who don't know, or maybe you know, but you just haven't taken the leap, if you join the Fantasy Grounds College Discord, you get to hear me ramble and go off on tangents before we get started. Um, uh, Thank you all for those who've put up with my squirrelisms, but I appreciate it. Anyway, this week we're talking about Law and Order, and in our tabletop RPG settings. And what do we mean by Law and Order? Well, take a look at the bottom of the thumbnail, right? It's about the procedures and persecution and prisons and law enforcement and all that kind of stuff in tabletop games, from small villages with the strongest person who walks around protecting the people, all the way to major institutions and things of that nature, and kind of how to add them into the game if you want to add them into the game in the first place, and creating some great stories centered around the idea of player characters either being the pro or antagonists involved in some form of investigation and apprehension, escape, or imprisonment of themselves or others. Um, yeah, and I hear you, Tesla. Although the funny thing is that we before this we started talking about initiative, and uh, I'm a grognardian, and those of us that were grognards, we remember a time when initiative was extremely dynamic. You rolled every round, and so that was that was basically the thing. Kiwi, what's going on there, man? Hey, DJ, I'm alive. Just moved home 3 years, or however long it's been since Hurricane Harvey. Soon I should be back here fairly regularly again. Wow. I'm very sorry about what happened to you there, dude. But you're always welcome to be here. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much. Wow. I appreciate it. I'm kind of taken aback by that, sir. Um, Oh, okay. So you were in transit during the time that where you took part in these early morning stateside talks. Okay, all right. Well, that's kind of flattering there. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Now, one thing I wanted to bring up, and this can be a little bit of a contentious thing when it comes to tabletop games, is how hard do you lay down the law when it comes to players who choose to break the law? And man, Dead Man says Hurricane Harvey was 2017. Now, a lot of times, what ends up happening is, and normally this is with players who aren't out there to try to disrupt your game or your world. Uh, Players are adventurers. They're the exotic ones. They're the ones who step in and do the hard part at the time when it's difficult to do those things. And those characters are the intention of those characters, of course, means that they're going to come across, they're going to have to break the law. They do some breaking and entering, sneaking around, threats, intimidation. They are second story people sometimes. That's just part of the game, and we expect that. So it doesn't really even matter what game it is. At some point, unless the PCs specifically are agents of the law, they're going to somehow come across people who are on the opposite sides of the law, no matter what game it is or what time period it is. But one thing that's very rarely mentioned in a lot of these games, unless the characters are specifically in a game where there's some kind of draconian government, is how much law enforcement should there be in the first place? Meaning, like, what's the response of the community? And one rule that I like to use is basically, double the effect. It should grow exponentially. And that's, as I describe this, it's going to seem like it's pretty harsh. It's a pretty harsh rule, but the reasoning is from law enforcement all the way up to the military, is that there's actually a rule that you very rarely engage in a hostile with a hostile adversary unless you have overwhelming force. It's just a thing, right? You don't, because there's no reason to engage someone on equal ground, because there's an equal chance you'll lose. And why would you want to lose? Also, there's oh, Zed says, ugh, I'm so upset. I'm not sure why. I hope it's nothing I said, but um, the reasoning behind that, of course, is on a psychological level, they're going to have loyalty to each other. If a police officer goes down, their other brothers and sisters and such on their force will arrive en masse to protect one of their own. Also, logistically, one of their own goes down. They understand that that individual or number of individuals is creating a great threat, and they want to shut that threat down as soon as possible, and such. So the idea of creating or sending in individuals at an exponential rate, I think actually works mathematically and thematically. Oh, new work. I have to go to work early. My boss never told me what time to start. So being trained in a new area. Ooh, that's a lack of communication. Sorry about that, Zev. Sphinges. Yeah, the plural of sphinxes, of more than one sphinx. Sorry. Uh, mm, um, you know the rule. Being early is being on time. There, man. Sucks, but yeah, yeah. So anyway, so imagine this, right? You have yeah. Go past Mickey D's, get a breakfast sandwich. I don't know if I'll be able to get one myself. Shove it in the gullet and get a notebook, sit somewhere, get on your phone and wait. Yep. Shows initiative. I don't know how much cheering up you get from popping in here, but whatever. All right, so follow me on this. PCs come into a small town. We have our pseudo ancient medieval society or something. PCs, city guard says, "Okay, pass through the gates. You're gonna have to drop a copper in the coffer," and all the PCs say except for one of them. One of them's like wants to go ham on the city guard for asking for. Yeah, he can pop in here and cope, either cope or fall asleep. So one of the PCs is like, "I'm not paying a copper. This is BS," and goes to draw their sword and wants to kill the city guard. Okay, so Plur says, "I have a friend who was a police officer and was talking about the effect of dealing with some of the stuff that they do. He was talking about the lack of support." Yeah, and mind you, that is its own thing, right? If you want to take away the facelessness of your city guards, if that is or guardians or whatever law enforcement there is, a good way to do that, of course, giving them personalities and have players overhear their conversations and things. And of course, not every place will operate exactly the same. But if a city guard, let's say a guard is level 1, whatever level 1 is appropriate to your world, it would make sense that the follow-up to that would be some combination of either more individuals or more experienced people, or people who have larger resources coming in at, say, level 2. And if they are confounded in some kind of way, attacked, knocked out, trapped, killed, or whatever, then you bump that up to 4, then 8, and 16, 32, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until until those opponents are eliminated in some kind of way, arrested, unless the perpetrators themselves are attacked, arrested, killed, or whatever the case might be, whatever, however that law enforcement will happen. And the reason why I say exponential is because there is this metagaming idea that, oh well, the game master can't possibly have guardians of this town greater than what's written in the back of the book, right? But that's not really the case. You're going to have if they're humanoid people, they're going to be veterans. They're going to be individuals who are smarter, faster, more experienced, the equivalent of like a SWAT team or HRT or some other kind of special forces group that deal with whatever's going on. Does that mean there might be a time difference to gather some of these more experienced people? Sure. But over time, there are going to be individuals that are going to be brought in, even if it means the law enforcement may temporarily hire individuals, or they have an understanding with other individuals to get involved in it. And then, of course, the community and business and all that kind of stuff would have an interest in resolving whatever case might be. You know what I mean? Depending, and that, of course, that's based on the law enforcement of the region, whether it's extremely lawful, in which case it would be extremely organized, or whether it's seat of the pants and any old person just starts grabbing their weapons and running outside to see what they can do, or just get in the way. Pelora goes on to say the quote was, talking about the police officer friend, the quote was, "I just had someone's head collapse and their brain spill over my lap. I might need a minute." Yeah. Oh, you're so funny, Dead Man. About the squirrels and stuff. Yeah. Zev says there's a reason many cop stereotypes are hard drinkers and smokers. The habits take the edge off and lead to dependency. I would dare say that, especially here, I can only speak for here in the States. I dare say that more than a larger percentage than we think of are probably suffering from some form of PTSD, especially when every time they clock in to work, they only see the worst parts of society based on whatever region they patrol. I'm pretty sure that there's a bunch of high cops on edge that are probably suffering some pretty bad trauma, and then you add to that each officer has their own personality, and it only takes a friend of mine was a police officer, and he talked about people who like to run and gun, and there are those who just want to have a gun and find a chance to use it, and that one ruins it for 30 other police officers who have to work with that individual, and yeah, so you got to worry about that as well, along with the fact that 99.9% of the time they just want to go home, and so when you ramp up the danger or the threat of danger to them, they ramp up their response in response to the danger you're giving them. And so, and then things can pretty easily get out of control. Pelora says, yeah, until that conversation, it was just nebulous ideas of being a police officer can be hard. I've gone way dark. But the point was that often we take guards and so on as the faceless force and don't consider the individual and the support they need. I cannot agree with you more on that one. There's this, there's the whole public service thing where, I mean, hell, you could get on YouTube and find all the quote unquote important people getting pulled over by cops and screaming and yelling at the police officers about how I'm going to take your badge and you need to know your place and I pay your taxes. My tax money pays your salaries, and they hear all the, I'm thinking, I can just imagine the back of their head, right? They're just rolling their eyes like, listen, all I want to do is pull your car over. If you just shut the hell up, I might have just let you go on a ticket. You know you were speeding. I know you were speeding. Let me just do this thing so that we both walk away from it. My friend called it activity. Police officers have to generate activity, does that mean pulling people over for violating certain rules? Also, the idea of pulling someone over means their lights are flashing, which also sends a message to other people on, say, roadways to get themselves to calm down a little bit. And it may be necessary to do something like that, right? So will this take up a half hour of the police officer's time as they fill out some paperwork? Sure, that officer's going, at least I got a half hour where I'm filling out paperwork and I'm not running and gunning on these other calls. You know what I mean? It's almost I hate to say this, but you know, cats out of trees, tickets, noise disruption and things like that are actually safety valves for a lot of police officers as well. Because, hey, I'm on this one safe call. I am not on a call where I have to go to, I don't know, shots fired or someone's dead or something like that. You know what I mean? Plura says, yep, he was also talking about how he was edgy walking around town, but has since got a new job and is much happier. Just for a light note. Yeah. The idea that there are a group of people who, every day they see the seedier side of society and that can affect them. Now how that impacts, creating personalities and things, because we are talking about tabletop RPGs. Just this is a slight segue. There are ways to info dump for your players instead of reading them 18 pages of information. A lot of times you want to make that information organic, and if the PCs hear conversations between other NPCs, that may give them an indication of the goings on in your world. And such. So if the PCs come to some random city state and they come into the city gates and they walk around and they hear the guards talking to each other about some crime that happened last night, or one of the guards is like, hey buddy, can I, asking their partner if they could get a loan because they have to pay their a gambling debt or a bookie, or one of them is worried about their kid, or one of them can't wait to get off work because they're really edgy, or one of them is warning the other guard like, hey man, you need to calm down, and maybe she's just itching for a fight or something, and she's just like, I can't believe what happened to Grendor the other night. I'm just willing to, I'm just ready to punch somebody out. You know what I mean? Just have one person say something to me. Watch what happens. And revealing that yep. Plura's like triangles. Yeah. Yeah. Me and my triangles, right? So it's not just the PCs and them butting up against the city guard, but it's the PCs, the city guard, and then you have this other little bit of information. And are you dropping a little bit of are you dropping a story seed, a hook or something? Possibly. Guards can be religious. Guards can have an interest in wanting to leave their job. They have other responsibilities, or they're looking out for other people in their community, or they're looking out for some enemy force that's trying to sneak into the city, and the PCs just happen to be in the way, as the guards go through their personal items, and the PCs are like, who are you looking for? What's going on? Like, did we do something wrong? They're like, nah, you're fine. We're looking for, I don't know, a certain gang or something like that. We just want to check your tats or something. It could be something weird like that. And the PCs might be thinking like, oh, there's some other thing going on in this town. And also, even if they don't grab onto a hook, it's a great way. You can give the PCs a microcosm of what the city is like or the location they're at. So just like going into your so-called tavern, it's a microcosm. It's a great way to have your NPCs say and do things that are emblematic of the goings on, the action that's taking place. So if the PCs were never there, these things would have happened anyway. The PCs get there, if they get involved in it, they understand that they're looking for people who have a certain brand or tattoo in their arm because of some enemy or rebellious faction. They understand that there's a gambling den because one of the guards has owe someone a gambling debt or something. Maybe there's a plague that's been sweeping through the outskirts and is coming into town, and one of them has a sick relative, or one of them has a child that wants to go to wizard school, but they can't afford the tuition or something. I don't know, anything like that. Zev says saying that. Zev says, I mean, another thing is you need to convey the info dramatically. Exactly. Instead of just picking up a notebook, and reading 18 pages, by having that information given across organically. overhearing conversations, the the people that that they interact with pointing out certain things, like, oh, one of the PCs has shockingly red hair, and the guard says something like, my daughter has red hair like that, or whatever. It could be anything of that nature. Or someone admires the weapon they're carrying, or asks where they've been and they're a little bit suspicious, or they've never seen their race before in this town, or anything thereof, right? And that conversation, it's like an interrogation, but done so organically that the players may not even realize that they're drawing information out of the PCs. And this is your excuse to say, look, it's your subtle way of telling your players, look, I wrote down a lot of notes in the notebook, or my Google Doc, or my OneNote, or whatever. I sure as hell I'm going to give you this information some kind of way, and I want you to use and abuse my setting. Here's a great way to do it, and try to do that organically. And one of those ways is through conversation, either being directly involved with the conversation, or overhearing it, or sparking that conversation because of the way they look or act, or the questions they have, or the comments that they make. Even going so far as to comment on how someone smells, or their accent, or their mode of dress, or something of that nature. Yeah. Plur says the Witcher did a good job of that, I think, and also goes to say the perfect background is useless unless it comes out on the table. Absolutely. I get that some players want to create backstories that are like novels, but if it never surfaces in a game, it's like it never existed. Which is another great way for us GMs and DMs out there, that no offense, but all the notes you write don't matter until they actually impact the world. Until you say that guard has a gambling debt, it doesn't matter. You change it on the fly, does not matter at all. Has zero impact on your world. Don't hold on to it like it's a life raft. It does change it if it's better for the guard to now have like kind of like a little flirty attraction to one of the PCs, then make that a truism and bring that into the world. Otherwise, none of it matters. It doesn't matter at all. So yeah, the moving on with this law, this law and order theme, I did want to bring up a little bit of like a Discord Tuesday. I'm kind of bringing in the idea of using some sort of mechanics involved. And one method of adding in some kind of mechanics would be, you could establish a rule that even with characters who have certain special abilities or powers or whatever, because yesterday we talked about like detection abilities being an easy button. And one rule you could establish is, even if a player has the ability to sense the truth, look through walls, detect magic, some kind of reading of minds, or some kind of psychic awareness, or whatever the case might be, to very quickly discern information, you might want to tie to it at least one skill roll and just make that a rule. Like, yes, you have the power to detect magic, but you're going to have to make an arcana or an investigation or perception check or insight check to discern the information or the evidence that you have presented before you. Much like, like our favorite detective procedural shows, right? They get there and it's like, there's broken glass and there's water, there's a blood stain, there is a laptop computer, there's a weapon, it looks like there was a fight. And then so they have all the information presented, but it requires their working together and intelligence, their investigative abilities to discern the information. And this may be a way to mitigate the I'm going to make a perception check people. Some players don't even describe what they're doing. They just go, I walk in a room, I make a perception check. What do I see? And So a perception check in this case might be, you see all the evidence, you have zero context. You see a broken mug on the ground, you see footsteps, you see a music player that's been playing all night. I don't know, whatever the case might be, right? But other skill roles, arcana, religion, investigation, history, whatever the game may have, might require insight for people's personalities and witnesses and things, and then combining all of that together puts the puts the information and the evidence into a specific coherent context, mainly because often in our procedurals there's evidence that leads down, like they're basically red herrings. So someone could be very perceptive, but that doesn't necessarily mean they understand the context of the evidence. So that might be a way for you to get other character types involved as well. Pelora says, it would be interesting having mage detectives who use things like detect magic, even though magic is illegal in a place. Yes, and also, not only might it be illegal, you can go even further down that path. Maybe certain spells that are cast, they leave a residue behind, as to who cast it or what school. Not school of magic, although that's a possibility, whether it's necromantic or evocation or enchantment, but it may tell you which instructor taught that magic. Like maybe they are from a specific faction of magical individuals. Maybe that magic leaves a trail behind, almost like thermal vision would leave a heat signature of sorts. Maybe it leaves a residue behind that eventually begins to fade over minutes, hours, days, or months or something. And so a fireball may have been cast 3 weeks ago, but it still leaves a residue in this location, much like a gun residue of sorts. Anything like that. Pelora goes on to say that it could be a punishment for mages, breaking them into thralls used to sniff out magic. Let me go on and continue reading the comics, and then we'll deep dive into that. Like chained and having their eyes put out and dragged along with the regular guard. Yeah, I thought about something like that too, where there may be people who are punished, born with, cursed, blessed, uh, graduated bottom of the class, top of the class. There might be a class of individuals that have that, where either in a very extremely draconian society, they may burn the eyes out of individuals who are running around like the dogs that used to the X-Men comics. They had hounds. They were known as hounds, and they had human beings with dog chains on them that would hunt down people who were the mutant progenitors and things like that. And who's to say that those traits might not flow into animals or bestial creatures? A city guard with a displacer beast that can sniff out magic might be pretty nasty. You know what I mean? Zev says that's what they do. I believe in Cyberpunk, they make people who are so heavily modified that become like a computer to deal with augmented terrorists. They're called the Cyber Psycho Squad. Yeah, in the classic Cyberpunk, there were people who would go cyber psycho from all the modifications, and they had a cyber psycho squad that would put them down. Yeah. Pelora goes on to say witching stalkers and Malefax are basically like that. Mages that get wrecked. Yeah. I would absolutely positively add something like that into a place, especially if it's like if it's a nasty punishment where there are these individuals who are normally blind or chained up, or they have maybe there's a cage over their head that's locked in, and there's like a big chain off the back, and they have to serve their time by working for the local constabulary or something, and using their power to hunt down other spellcasters. And we're kind of flowing into something else that has to do with, say, magic and psychic powers and things of that nature, where you're not changing the rules of how the magic works, but you're changing the narrative of how those things work. Omen, I don't know who you are, but I'm glad you can join in. Let's listen on in and take place. If you don't know, above in the Discord, there's a link to my channel because I'm also live on YouTube. And when the show's over and at around 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will unmute those who would like to, have a little conversation. So anyway, for we're in many ways we are also talking about the idea of how magic works in your world. So a mage that charms someone's mind, do they leave some form of residue or some form of like enchantment left over in the brain even after the hypnotism or the charm or mind control fades away? And can that in and of itself be tracked later on? Or maybe that it's like a fingerprint that if a mage were to charm someone's brain, charm someone, a city guard, to get into the gates, and then later they use another form of magic, each one of those has their own fingerprint, their own weaving, that's very individual for each person. Plura puts in the Discord, the witching stalker. I think also we even brought up, like I brought up the invisible stalker idea, where there may be, you could add in some other beasties in your world that are hired, forced, trained, summoned, etc., that might be part of your law enforcement in your tabletop RPG. Again, a classic would be the invisible stalker that hunts down someone who's been offended by, or a family member from a noble's been killed, and they hire a mage to summon an invisible stalker to take revenge or something. Or the classic gargoyles. The gargoyles sit on the parapets of a local castle, and when a crime is committed, the gargoyles come to life and hunt those individuals down. Also, Plura bringing up the idea of a mage having their eyes put out. You could alter the sensory abilities of some of your monsters, so that they only see certain things, like they only see magic. That displacer beast on a chain by one of like an ogre guard or something like that walking around town, maybe it sniffs passers-by who might close their eyes and shiver in fear as the displacer beast and its tentacles sniff around and oh so gently caress the faces of passers-by, but they might only be violent against those that they smell that might have had a casting within the last hour, right? Yeah, every displacer beast needs their tummy scratch, right, Zev? Zev said everyone wants to be the invisible stalker, but no one ever sees the invisible stalker. Yeah, everyone wants to use the invisible stalker, but no one sees the invisible stalker. And what a great way to add a little bit of a nudge wink to your setting. If an invisible stalker happens to flow past where the PCs are at, going after some other adversary that has nothing to do with the PCs, and they're just like, what the hell just happened? And you see like tables get knocked down and people are shopping and they get pushed over, and then all of a sudden someone in the open market gets snatched up in the air or something, or ripped to shreds, or slammed against the wall until the authorities get there or whatever. That might be pretty I think that would be cool. Golems work very well for this. Special creatures that might have like special insignia on them. So minotaurs, ogres, giants or something might be carrying, like wearing a ring or wearing a medallion or something that makes them part of this league of hunters, and they go around enforcing the law as well. And also, you like yesterday we brought up unmonitored alarm systems. So bells, lights, sounds, colors, powders, whatever might activate if certain types of magic or magic at all is used. So if someone tries to attempt to cast a spell, maybe there are poles with bells on them. They like ding or someone enters into the city and there's the equivalent of the magnetic wand for people who have magic in them, and they are forced to wear something that will glow or send a signal that tells them that they cast magic in the first place, and maybe the mage's faction controls that. So if you have enough money or you know someone, maybe you're able to get you have to wear one of these medallions or something that actually does not activate if you have the proper key or keyword or whatever. And then, mind you, we're just building on top of the next thing that builds on top of the next thing, right? Plur says a broken magic nullifier in a lost city could have been broken down, and instead of just canceling all magic, you could roll on the wild magic table or something instead. I absolutely agree with you. Like, there might be, like, Backlash was brought up yesterday. There could be a Backlash table, a wild magic table. You could come up with your own magics. So if the town is under the protectorate of the triumvirate of storm gods or something, right? And it's in a mountain pass or something. Maybe the wild magic there will strike you down with being frozen in place or struck by lightning or sucked up into a tornado if the magic surge, the backlash, affects you. Whereas in a desert city, maybe you are a swarm of scorpions swarms over your body, or a personal dust devil swarms around you and the sand lashes at your flesh, or you suddenly lose all the moisture in your body and you become not just dehydrated, but you start to shrivel up or something. And you could get across that by having other people do it as a response to them casting magic, and the PC see it to give them a foreshadow of what might happen if they did it themselves, right? Zev said instead of the canine units, you have IS units. I'm not sure. Invisible sun units? I'm not exactly sure what you said. But Zevrons goes on to say, in Ravnica, law magic, such as forcing people to tell the truth or remember what they did, etc., is said to mimic that of the caster. Slow, stuffy, deliberate, many intricate designs meant to slow progress. So that's another thing too. You can get from your players that whatever kind of caster they are is the backlash they suffer. So the PC that wants to be a necromancer, could they themselves suffer from some kind of necromantic backlash, or maybe radiant backlash, and maybe a pyromancer suffers like a cryo backlash, which is a possibility as well. And maybe that backlash sets off an alarm where there's like a magus order or a faction that monitors the city with like crystal balls or something, and they're like, or maybe they have a giant map that that has a little pin in it, or like, or a glow or whatever, and they're like, oh, something's happening in Sector 7. Send the gargoyles to investigate. Plura brings up Stalker. Yeah, you start to there could be shadowy entities that become more, they go from like something in the corner of the eye to becoming more physical as you break the rules more and more. That could be a thing as well. So everyone says to make a zone of truth, it takes an hour or so to just draw the triangle and magic sigils on the floor, and to properly channel their mana without overclocking it. So invisible. IS unit, invisible stalker unit. I see it. Hey, I be careful of abbreviations. Sometimes I don't get them a lot. But yes, there could be an invisible stalker unit, which would be kind of weird. I'm not sure exactly what their how they would prep in the locker room in your police procedural, but that would be pretty interesting. Especially when the commander is like, they each invisible stalker has their own name and appearance, but no one knows what they look like, so they just refer to them all with the same name. Like, who are you? Joe. You don't look like Joe. You can't even see me. Oh man, but that would be pretty nasty to have invisible stalkers literally stalking the city in search. Like maybe the invisible stalkers can't leave the city, but they are ever present in hunting down or searching for magic casters. And in order to create a magical heist, the players could time when and if the invisible stalkers are nearby to try to get away with something. That's a possibility as well, where it might be extremely dangerous, but there's a gap of time where crime can be committed, or distraction. Someone causes destruction on one end of the city so that all the invisible stalkers go to one end of the city, and that unit of them goes there, thereby allowing the people in the heist to commit some kind of crime somewhere else. And if the PCs are part of law enforcement, they might be fooled by something like that as well. Pelor says, I've used a lie detection Numenera device in a guard post. I guess that's mechanical, but not that novel. No, I think that would actually be pretty good. And we talked about the problems of lie detection, right? If someone can believe a lie, thereby making it true in their head, but a lie in fact. And this could also be the opposite way. Someone could be lying about something, them not knowing that there's an actual truth involved. Pelor says, I do like the demon thing. That could be a thing. If people start using magic, they become a focus for demons and have to take precautions. Hell, turn those precautions off as a punishment. Yep. Trial and public execution rolled into one. If you weren't using magic, no demons. If you were, nope. Yep. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And culturally, there might be the presumption of, well, of course they were attacked by demons. They must have done something wrong, right? That's a thing as well. Everyone else crossing themselves, like Secola, Secolorum, or whatever the case might be, Christe Eleison, or whatever it is. And as the demons, scramble through the city streets or something at night to go take someone out, and all the public people are just closing their eyes and they're like, please don't come after me, please, it's not me, it's them, it's they're the sinners, or whatever the case might be. Now moving on a little bit past persecuting people, taking them to court, there's also the idea of, what do you do with people who are apprehended? In games, you have the idea of people casting spells. So we've hunted the spellcaster down, but how do you physically apprehend them, and what do you do with them? Like, do you imprison a mage who has the ability to use somatic and verbal components for spells? Especially in a world where people are knowledgeable about those things, or at least a select group of people are knowledgeable about them. I mean, what do you do with them? Do you encase their hands in stone, or place specific types of gloves over their hands so that they cannot use their fingers? Do you blindfold them so that they cannot see a target? Do you wrap something around their mouth, like a chastity belt for the face, to prevent them from speaking? Are they given a potion or some kind of other fluid or injection, or gaseous inhalant or something that prevents them from speaking and turning them mute, or what have you? Like, what do you do? What kind of choices do you make for those people? And does this particular city have that? Do they bring in outsiders that are better able to handle it? Is there a faction that does this for a price to go after violators of magic as well? I think those are kind of cool things to play with in a setting. And establishing the rules on escape. Like, is there a difficulty to break out? Is it just a matter of taking it slow and easy over a longer period of time, to slowly unravel the magic weave that is causing the anti-magic prison to exist in the first place? And where did this anti-magic prison come from? Was it created by ancients and people were just using it? Was it is it powered by a council of magi or something? Those kind of things. So yeah. Zev says, if you take too long to make the zone of truth, then it can corrupt their thoughts and make them believe whatever you ask them, even if they truly are innocent. You need to be truly deliberate and do the spell properly and in the allotted time. So you're saying you're adding a further complication that not only would there be or a zone of truth might be there, but it needs to be constructed in a specific manner in order for it to be used. And maybe it only works temporarily, or it requires a specific types of individuals to use it. Hey, babe. Hey. Have a great day, baby.
You too. I love you.
Love you. That is the Heraldrix calling. We are almost at an hour. We will be ending this. Thank you very much, Pillar. We will be ending this pretty shortly. That is my wife. She is the Heraldrix who calls upon the hour mark, bringing this talk to a close. I will go through the ends of this chat, and then I'll be getting out of here. Tesla says a muzzle. A muzzle would both a mundane and a arcane muzzle might work on a mage if you can catch them in the first place. Pelor says, my prison was a floating crystal fortress chained to the floor. Can't jump out, you die. There was a transport up and down. I like the idea of like cages or something that are like chained to be above something dangerous or whatever, whether it's like like I said, raging river before lava, acid, bottomless pit or something like that. Yeah, you could have, like you said, a whole fortress might be floating above something. So escaping, even if you could escape your prison room, getting out of the place might be problematic as well. Ranger says, Tesla Ranger says, what was the name of the Scott Bakula movie where the big bad had an iron mask literally bolted to his face? That wasn't the Man in the Iron Mask, was it? I'm thinking of something else, but there is something. Zev says, in my campaign for mages, I do a combination of two things. For somatic components, they use soul chains. It is a handcuff that severs the connection of the weave to your body, killing your arms. Okay. Temporarily. And for verbal, they put in a mouth guard. Lord of Illusions, was that it? I don't remember the name of that movie, but I remember the Scott Bakula movie with that. Yeah. So anyway, guys, the idea of using, I mean, there are mundane ways to stop, a mage, right? Something over their mouth, something over their hands, something over their eyes. Lord of Loot, Clive Barker movie. It was a Clive Barker movie. Clive Barker was was it the H.R. Geiger of his time, or H.G. Geiger of his time too. Pretty nasty stuff there. But very scary. Yeah, all the Hellraiser movies. Hell yeah. But all right, guys. So Zev, have a great one. Good luck with work. Like I said, being early is being on time there, dude. It'll show it might even embarrass the person who's supposed to train you, which might be putting a little good word for yourself there. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. For those who don't know, if you've survived this long on the show, you know that we go live Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please look that up for your own, calculate that to your own time zone. Episodes will be uploaded periodically to SoundCloud. So if you prefer to listen to the show in an audio format, there's an archive of older episodes if you want to listen to it in that form. And as well, please join Fantasy Grounds College. They are having Spooktober coming up the 25th, 26th, and 27th of October. Please join in the games they have over at Fantasy Grounds, and then even learn something in Fantasy Grounds College for free. So anyway, have a great one. I will see thee later. Bye.